Hey everyone, it's Carrie. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be making a masculine card, and it's going to be focused on just a lot of embossing and a lot of texture. So today this is the card we're going to be making. It's a really different design for me, but I really enjoyed how it turned out. So we're going to start off by a piece of, I already cut down a piece of Someone Says Stamp khaki cardstock, and we're going to die cut a piece of this using the Mama Elephant scallop frame die. This is from their Fem Frames collection, and I was kind of wonky onto my die cut machine here, but I was too lazy to stop, so I just was careful when I was die cutting this piece of cardstock. So I cut that out, and then we're going to add a little bit of texture with another set of dies. I showed you previously in a video before this one how to emboss with your dies, and so that's what we're doing again today. So I'm just preparing my sandwich for that, and so I'm laying down my cutting mat, my cutting little rubber, or my cutting pad, and then my rubber mat, and then the cardstock, and then I'm placing some Sizzix circle dies that I have, and I'm going to place the biggest or the next to biggest one that I have, put that in the middle, and then I've already pre-assembled, I guess you will, the dies, the rest of the dies, with a piece of micropore tape. I find this is easier to do this technique if you use multiple dies to put a piece of tape across them, so it helps them to keep them together. So I'm going to go ahead and put my other cutting plate on top of my sandwich here, and I'm just going to run that through my die cutting machine, and that rubber mat underneath it is going to prevent the dies from cutting into the cardstock, and it's just going to leave behind a nice texture as if you were embossing with an embossing folder. It's really a fun technique. So you see here all the neat little texture that it leaves behind. So now we're going to go set that aside, and we're going to do some embossing. And so I'm going to grab my stamp set here. This is the Fair Feather stamp set from Mama Elephant, and I'm just grabbing the solid feather here, and I got a piece of another piece of that cardstock, excuse me, and we're going to emboss this in gold. So I'm going to get my acrylic block and just place that onto my block, and then add some VersaFine Onyx Black Novo Versamark ink. It's a really sticky ink, and it's great for embossing. I'm going to prep my little cardstock here to make sure that the embossing powder doesn't stick where I don't want it, and I'm just stamping down my stamp with the I want to keep saying VersaFine Versamark today. And then I'm going to go ahead and ink that up one more time, because we're going to be using 2 feathers on our card today, as you saw in the picture. So I'm going to stamp that down again, and then I'm going to go ahead and get my embossing powder out. This is my Stampin' Up. I've got this gold embossing powder that I've had ever since I started card making. It's a really great gold embossing powder. I'm almost out, so I need to get some more or find a different brand or something. But anyway, I'm just going to funnel that back into my jar here, and I'm going to go ahead and heat emboss. And I just let my heat gun heat up really good and hot, and then it just, I love watching embossing. I think a lot of us do that have embossed before. It's just a soothing thing to watch this powder melt. So I've got that embossed, and then I'm going to take the coordinating dies, and I'm going to die cut these feathers out. So that's what I'm doing here, and I'm going to do this obviously twice. So I'm going to run that through my die cut machine once, and then remove that first one, and then place the die onto the other feather and die cut it out as well. And it's, I just love these feathers. Like I said, I think the first time that I really used this stamp set, I really thought it was a great stamp set for masculine cards. So I'm going to go ahead and die cut my second feather out here and run that through. And now we're going to do a little bit of stamping. I've taken the smallest feather in this set, and I wanted I didn't want this background to be, just in your face, because we've already got the texture onto our cardstock with those dies. So I'm using Versamark ink here, And I'm stamping this down just as just a regular ink. And this is going to create a really subtle pattern on the back of our cardstock here. It's a really fun pattern, and it really brings the whole design together, I think. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp this all over my cardstock here. And you'll see here the fun design that it leaves behind. It's not too much, but it just gives it just enough in the background where it's not so plain. I'm also taking the little spatter images in this set, and I am going to be placing those randomly throughout the background too. But I'm going to be embossing these little spatter images in gold. So I already prepped, make sure that, once we stamped down the feathers, I made sure that those were good and dry, for the most part anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and add my gold embossing just to the little spatter images, and I'm taking my little spoon here and just dipping some of my gold embossing powder out and placing that directly onto the images that I stamped down. And this just makes it just a little bit better, where you won't have to be putting your entire your jar of embossing powder onto your cardstock. So whenever I take off this embossing powder, some of the Versamark ink from the feathers wasn't quite dry, but it's no big deal at all. All you got to do is just take a paint or a brush and just brush that away before you emboss. So that's what I'm going to do here, and I'm embossing those little images there, and it just gives it just that extra fun dimension or texture onto the background. So now what we're going to do is work on our sentiment. I started out using a different sentiment, and which I didn't want, and then I realized that right before I stamped it down. This one says, let's keep in touch, I believe. The other one, but I really wanted this to be a birthday card. So you'll see here in a moment that I actually changed my mind, and I realized that that's not the sentiment that I wanted. So I grabbed the correct sentiment, the birthday wishes sentiment from the same set. And I'm also going to be inking this up in Versamark. Like I said, we're doing a lot of embossing today. So I've prepped my surface once more, and I'm going to ink that up again with the Versamark, and I'm going to stamp that down. And I'm also going to emboss this also in the gold embossing powder. So I'm going to stamp this down and then add my embossing powder onto my sentiment. And a little bit of the embossing powder clinged again to some of the feathers in the background, but again, no big deal. All you got to just take is a little paintbrush or a little fine brush and just brush that away right before you emboss. So that's what I'm doing here. You can kind of see that some of it stuck to the feathers again, but like I said, no big deal. You just take the time and just remove that powder, and you can see that embossed sentiment with the gold spatters. It's really fun. So we're going to be finishing up our card. I've got a piece of Simon Says Stamp True black cardstock, and I'm going to be making a top folding card today. So I'm going to score this at 5.5. This is going to be an A2 size card. So I'm going to score that at 5.5 and just fold that over and give it a good crease with my bone folder. I love my bone folder. It is an investment, but it really is worth it, I feel, to have a really good quality bone folder. So I'm going to go crease that down, and then I'm going to add, just place that on there, make sure how I like it. And I'm going to go ahead and figure out where I want to put my feathers. So that's what I'm kind of doing here. So I'm going to I've already placed some just regular adhesive on the back of this one feather. So I'm placing that down and adhering that in place. And then I'm going to take some foam adhesive and put on the back of this feather here, because I do want to pop it up just to give it a little bit of extra dimension. And I'm trying to make sure that I don't cut my finger because, as y'all saw on camera a couple of videos back, these scissors are very sharp. So you got to be very careful with them if you own them. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up placing my adhesive onto my feather here. And I'm going to take off the backings of that and just place that down. And I really do, like I said in the beginning of the video, liked how this came out. It was one of those cards that I had an idea in mind, and then it totally turned out totally different than what I intended it to do. But as I kept creating, the ideas kept popping in my head. I think we all do that once in a while. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that's adhered in place. And then I'm going to also put foam adhesive on the back of my card panel here. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to place it all, put the long strips all down the whole entire card front here. I got a piece stuck there. I was all fingers at this point. So I'm going ahead and take off the backings of that and just place that down. And that finishes up our card for today. So I hope you like this card tutorial just as much as I liked making it for you. Any supplies that you see that I used in today's video will be listed below in the description bar below. And so I thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you on my next video. Bye-bye.